Shalom, Israel.
Shalom.
Welcome to another live class. We're here at 231 F1092, Stafford, Texas. Our class times are Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday. If you're local, if you're in Houston or the surrounding areas, feel free to check us out. The class times are on the screen. We have a school in Virginia. They do class every Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. We got class in Rochester, same days. Class times are from 7 to 9. We got San Antonio, they got class Monday, Wednesday, Friday from 7 to 10. Saturday, 10 to 2. Like I said, all the information's on the screen, so check it out. Make sure you look at the screen and get all the info, the addresses and times. We got the Blog Talk Radio. That's out of Albuquerque. That's every Tuesday and Thursday at 10 a.m. So make sure you check that out. It's a podcast, so you can always go back and check out some of the older shows. Okay. We have an upcoming feast. We got Hanukkah. All right, that's coming up on the 27th of November. So that's at sundown. On the 27th of November to December the 4th, sundown. Alright, it's a 8-day feast. So we definitely will be getting it in. Right? As we do. We definitely will get it. So you may not see us online some of them days. Do not fret. Do not get nervous. We just, you know what I'm saying, celebrating the feast day. If you want to join us and you're local, just, you can hit me up. My number is 303-557-8979, and we can get you the info, whatever we're going to do. We don't know yet. It's early, but we got to talk about it early. That way it don't creep up. You can watch us in various different ways, all the different schools. We got different YouTube channels. So if you type in ISBHPK on YouTube, it gives you all the channels. ISBHPK Kids, right? Hidden Truth Cable Bible Show, Israelite Media Corp, 5 Minutes of Wisdom. San Antonio has a channel, ISBHPK San Antonio. Virginia has a channel, ISBHPK Norfolk, right? So make sure you check those out. Like, share, subscribe. We got a lot of videos. We got a lot of videos and a lot of different topics. And what I like is that I'm not tooting our horn, but we go over a lot of topics that I don't see a lot of people go over. We talk about a lot of things that a lot of people ain't talking about. So, and like you go in depth. So yeah, check the videos out. A lot of questions get asked on those videos. So we got a few businesses. First business is Israelware. Right? You can check that. You can check that out, right? And with Israel, we got Fringed Up. You can go to www.isbhpk.com/fringed up. Subscribe. You get you a headband. You get you a shirt. $35 for the shirt, $75 for the headband and shirt. If you do both, every month you get a shirt with a biblical acronym. It's Fringed Up, and if you get the headband, it matches. Okay, so that's one business. Oh, and then you can go to Israelware itself and request whatever garment you want. It's a custom garment. They can set you up, sisters. They can set you up. They do a lot of stuff, handbags and book covers and all types of things. Whatever you need, just check us out at Israelware. And then we got Sweet Ambiance. SweetAmbiance.com. That's our oil business. We got a few mall locations. So you can check us out at www.sweetambiance.com. Bath bombs, body butters, soaps, makes deodorants, chapsticks, all types of stuff. So check us out. We got Hebrew Academy every Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Every Monday in Virginia and Rochester, and then Tuesday in Houston. All right, if you're local and you want to be a part of Hebrew Academy, brothers, hit us up. Get in there, get your breakdowns, get your questions answered. Learn how to use your sword. A lot of brothers got that Bible, but they don't know how to use that. So come through for Hebrew Academy, and it's training. It's training. If you need to contact somebody, if you need to contact a teacher, my number is 303-557-8979, or you can contact Kazakia, Priest Kazakia, 757-300-4047. And he's in Virginia, he's in Rochester right now. He'll be there for the next month. And he's gonna head back to Virginia. But you can hit either one of us up. Any questions, concerns, counsel, suggestions, anything, hit us up. Classes that y'all want us to do, hit us up. Any donations that you want to give? The flyers on the screen. I love this flyer because it so beautifully articulates the needs of the school. Right? What you got on there? Rent, internet,
And lights.
lights, the basic necessities for the building to function, right? So, but really, if you want to help us out, I'm not gonna go on a rant. But if you want to help us out with those things, feel free. If you want to help us out with the Passover location, we began to start paying for that so that we can secure it early. You know, we try to not do things last minute. You know, we try to be ahead of the curve. So if you'd like to help out with that, feel free to send whatever you like to the Wells Fargo or to the Zelle. What, do we have a PayPal?
Not on there.
And the Zelle. All right, so that's it for the announcements. So I know y'all see the title of the class. It's cremation or burial. Cremation versus burial. And there was a question asked on Friday. The brother Ashimaf, he asked a question: do we cremate or? I believe that wasn't our custom. And then somebody else put a scripture and said, well, see, it says cremation. And I'm like, no, that's not what that is. So what we're going to do is, because we like to go through things in depth, and I'm going to give y'all all the info, let's clear up any confusion on what, see, the important thing is what we did as a society, what we did as a nation. It don't matter what we do now, right? Doesn't matter what we do now. It doesn't matter what was forced on us. What did we do as a society, and what are we trying to get back to? Now we know through circumstance, a lot of things that we do in life, we shortcut. You know, we do it this way because it's easier, it's cheaper. You know, we've been taught and trained to follow the way of the oppressors. So let's just deal with it. Do we cremate? Do we bury? Do we do both? What do y'all think? What's up?
Oh, we bury. I had the same question, you know.
Okay.
Because I was planning on getting cremated.
Okay.
Because
I'm glad you said that.
yeah,
I'm glad you said that.
yeah. I was looking at it from a financial standpoint. It's cheaper.
It's about $1,000
Yeah,
to cremate
yeah,
somebody. They flip the switch on that oven.
yeah.
Damn, it ain't even an oven, it's an incinerator. They incinerate you. But I'm glad you said that, because one thing that we have to think about, you know, and this is not even an age thing, this is just a thing. You know, and I know nobody sits around thinking about it, but death. and death wishes. Meaning, what do you want to happen upon your death? Now, you know, you'll have, like we seen it, the brother Nicodemus. When he passed away, what happened? They shaved his whole beard off and threw him in a damn Edomite suit, right? And I'm sure that if he would have had something written out to say, hey, keep my beard, throw me on a headband with some long fringes, you know how Nicodemus did it, right? They would have had to adhere to his wishes. Just like when we went to Dawiya's film, they had him in a garment. They had to cut his beard because when they have him in a hospital, the ventilator, they had to cut it so that the ventilator can fit flush to his face. But he had his wishes laid out. This is what I want. I want to wear my garment. I want this is what I want there, right? He had this is what I want you to wear, wife, right? He laid it out. He laid it out. But think about it. If we're supposed to be Hebrews, if we're supposed to be Israelites, and we're supposed to be living and coming back to this life all the way up until your death, you even want your death to be carried out the way a Hebrew's death is carried out, the way a Hebrew man, a Hebrew woman is dealt with in death, right? So you don't want them to shave off your whole head and make you look, and we know it's just flesh, right? But still, no time did you read that David died and they shaved his beard and put him in a Babylonian garment, right? Or Solomon died and they cut off his locks and put him in an Edomite garment, right? They died, we put him in his attire, whatever it was, and we dealt with things the Hebrew way. So, who thinks that we just buried? Who thinks we burned the bodies? Who thinks we did both? Okay, thinks we did both. Okay, perfect. So, well, I'm gonna just bust y'all bubble right now. I will go over here. So, what I did, I went to the International Bible Encyclopedia online. I'm gonna just read this. I looked up the definition of burial. I got a few definitions here. I looked up the definition of burial first. It says, with the Greeks, it was customary to cremate the dead. So, I said this Friday without really doing any real research on it, but just knowing the type of thing that they're doing with the fire, that was a Greek custom. I knew that in my spirit, without even having to look at anything. I'm like, that's white folks. That's what they do. That's a Greek custom. They're all into the fire gods and things like that. So it was a Greek custom to cremate. It says, but there was nothing in Jewish practice exactly corresponding to this. Listen to the word. It was a matter of piety with the Jews to bury rather than to burn the bodies. So that's the definition of burial from the International Standard Bible Encyclopedia online. Now I'm going to jump in the same encyclopedia to the definition of cremation. It says, cremation, while the customary practice of the ancient Greeks and not unknown among the Romans, was certainly not the ordinary mode of disposing of the dead among the Hebrews or other Oriental peoples. Now, when it talks about Oriental peoples, who's it talking about? I want to see if y'all know. What? Nope. You're right, but you're wrong.
It's other nations.
What nations? She's right, but she's wrong. Because you're thinking small mind Asians like Chinese, Japanese, right?
Just all the Asian area.
The Orient.
That's Russia also.
Yeah,
Russia's
right.
Asian.
The Orient. Or Orientals are considered from Spain all the way over to, like you said, Russia. That whole Asian or Asia. So that was when you go back into history, when you look at it, that was Shem, that was Ham, that was Japhet, right? We didn't burn our bodies. Those people from those regions. So anybody that came from Noah, they didn't burn, right? But then we know after a time what happens. Well, we know where the Greeks and the Romans come from, right? Esau. but it wasn't a customary practice to burn the dead. Now let's go to Genesis real quick. Let's just go. And what we gotta understand is this. Watch this. I'm gonna show y'all something. I think it might give me a count of how many times the word buried is in the Bible. No, 120 times that the word buried, B-U-R-I-E-D, is in the Bible. Buried. Now check this out, B-U-R-Y. Buried, like B-U-R-Y, bury him 58 times. Burying, check this out, 13 times. So you got 120 plus 58, that's 178 plus 13, that's about 200 times the word buried is mentioned in the Bible. Now check this out. Cremation. I'm being facetious. It's not there. It's not there, but check this out. B-U-R-N-T. Burnt is there a lot. 364 times. But you know how many times that says burnt offering? Burnt offering, burnt offering, burnt offering? Yeah. Now, the reason why I went there was because we're going to see that there was burning of bodies upon death. But not what y'all think. Not what y'all think. So, go to Genesis 23 and verse 7. Genesis 23 and verse 7. Yeah, and again, you know, another topic that we didn't really, I think we talked about this, but we haven't really gone so super in depth. But it's good because you want to know what to tell your family to do with your body. You don't want to be thinking like, oh yeah, see, I can just, get my ashes spread across the Atlantic. That ain't what we did. You know, or what other weird things do they do on death? Really, you only bury a person or cremate them, right? But they have even different ways to cremate.
Now they're being weird and like, what's that stuff they use?
Embalming fluid?
Yes, they're embalming people with fully clothed and glasses and hats and sitting up straight.
Oh, just letting them chill for. Now let me say this: we did that, but not to the level. Oh wow, we're gonna go through it. We're gonna go through it. We're gonna touch a lot of different things. So remember, Jacob got embalmed. Jacob got embalmed. He got embalmed, but there was a reason for him being embalmed. Joseph was embalmed, but there was a reason for that. You see that? There was a reason. See, the one thing about the Egyptians was that they were skilled at body preservation, but it was carnal. They did it for a carnal reason. You know, when you hear about caskets, they were like the first ones that you heard about caskets. And they would leave their caskets above ground or in a, in a tomb. Why? Because Egyptian belief was that the body, the organs could not be, dismantled in any way for that man to go into that afterlife. You see that? So that they would pull the brains out, the organs, and cut them, pull the organs out, put them in these jars, these vases, put them next to the body, their cat, their riches, their ships, all these little modeled ships to symbolize them going into the afterlife. So their whole burial ritual was more of carnality. And they preserved that body. They wanted to preserve that body for a long time to be able to perform the rituals after death. There was after death rituals. They drained the blood out. They prayed over the body. When they wrapped the body in the linens, they would put little golden and silver little trinkets. I forget what they call them. I forget the name of them, but they would wrap them in each layer. So they wrap the body, put the golden trinkets, wrap the body, they would just hide them all over the body. So when the cave robbers went in, that's what they were stealing. All that gold, so they would rip the bodies apart to get the gold. To get those golden trinkets that were stuffed in the bodies or stuffed, wrapped in the linens. But they did that, they preserved those bodies so that they can carry out their rituals. You see that? Days and days later, after that. So let's read Genesis. Let's read about Abraham real quick. Genesis what?
27.
23 and verse 7. You're going to read the verse 20.
The book of Genesis, chapter 23, verse 7.
Go ahead.
And Abraham stood up and bowed himself to the people of the land, even to the children of Heth. And he communed with them, saying, if it be your mind that I should bury my dead out of my sight, hear me, and entreat me to Ephron the son of Zohar, that he may give me the cave of Machpelah, which he hath, which is in the end of his field.
Right, so Abraham is going to the sons of Heth. These heathen and saying, listen, I'm trying to buy this field so I can get the cave that's in the field. He was solely buying a field for one purpose. This is how important burying the dead was to Israel. He bought a cave for one purpose, not to plot and plant and dig wells and do all that stuff. He wanted the cave, he wanted the field for one reason and one reason only. Go ahead.
For as much money as it is worth, he shall give it me for a possession of a burying place amongst you.
Wait, a farm?
A possession of a burying place amongst you.
Just to have land?
The end of his field, for as much money as it worth, he shall give it for me as a possession of a burying place amongst you.
He just wanted it as a burying place. This is how important it was to bury the dead. In Hebrew custom. You see that? We didn't care about burning the dead because that wasn't going to do anything. That wasn't going to show, like it says, the piety, the respect that the Most High was looking for. So he bought this field. Go ahead.
Verse 10. And Ephron dwelt among the children of Heth. And Ephron, the Hittites, answered Abraham in the audience of the children of Heth, even of all that went in at the gate of his city, saying, Nay, my Lord, hear me. The field give I thee, and the cave that is therein, I give it thee. In the presence of the sons of my people give I it thee. Bury thy dead.
Bury thy dead. Go ahead.
And Abraham bowed down himself before the people of the land. And he spake unto Ephron in the audience of the people of the land, saying, But if thou wilt give it, I pray thee, hear me.
Now remember, the sons of Heth were Canaanites. They were Africans. So even they had this respect on the dead, where, okay, let's bury them. Go ahead.
I will give thee money for the field. Take it of me, and I will bury my dead there. And Ephron answered Abraham, saying unto him, My Lord, hearken unto me. The land is worth 400 shekels of silver.
Right.
What is that betwixt me and thee?
Right. What is that between two kings? 400 shekels. I mean, that was a lot of dough. But when you got it, it was nothing. He said, "What? That ain't nothing. You got it. I got it. Right? Let's do it. I'll give you the land. You give me the shekels. I know you got it. I see what you're rolling with. Right? I see the posse. I see the 300 trained servants. I see the wives and the children. Go ahead.
Bury therefore thy dead.
Right.
And Abraham hearkened unto Ephron, and Abraham weighed to Ephron the silver, which he had named in the audience of the sons of Heth, 400 shekels of silver, current money with the merchants. And the field of Ephron, which was in Machpelah, which was before Mamre, the field,
right,
and the cave which was therein.
Right, and this cave is significant, and we'll go through it, but you know when you hear the word sepulcher?
Okay.
Sepulcher? These are what they were. They were sometimes caves, or they would take a mountainside and dig it out. and they would dig it out, and they would just roll a rock right in front of it, and that would be a burying place. You see that? That's what you call a sepulcher, right? Go ahead. So, I mean, we buried in many different places, in mountains, on hilltops, in gardens. Some people got buried in their house, like right under their house or right next to their house. Some of us still hold that tradition today. My grandparents, they're buried on their land, right next to each other. Boom, boom. It's like it's my grandpa, my grandma. It's like 3 other people. I think his mom and dad or something like that. But it's a whole burial plot right there in their land. Go ahead.
And all the trees that were in the field, that were in all the borders round about, were made sure unto Abraham for a possession in the presence of the children of Heth.
Go ahead.
Before all that went in at the gate of his city. And after this, Abraham buried Sarah his wife in the cave of the field of Machpelah before Mamre,
Right.
the same as Hebron in the land of Canaan.
Go ahead.
And the field and the cave that is therein were made sure unto Abraham for a possession of a burying place by the sons of Heth.
Right. So let's jump over to Genesis 25 and 10. This was a big deal. This is a big deal that Abraham basically bought this field for 400 shekels just for the purpose of burying the dead. Now, think about it. Wouldn't it have been cheaper for him to just burn them? Wouldn't it have been cheaper for him to just burn Sarah? Let's just burn her up. It's cheaper. Why I gotta buy a whole field for it? Then I gotta have pay people to dig the graves or hewn the rock, dig out the cave. I gotta do all that for what? See, we didn't do things out of convenience. We didn't do things for what was cheaper or what wasn't. We did things out of what did the Most High want us to do. Now, the question on Friday was it a sin? Now, this is the thing. I was saying it Friday, you don't read in the law, if you burn the dead, you're a sinner. You don't read that. But think about this. We know that before we got with a person, we betrothed them for at least a year. That's what it says. That's what betrothal was, right? We betrothed, and it was at least a year. Now, is there a law that says you have to betroth for a year? You have to love? No, right? There's no law that says it, but is it in your best interest to do?
Yes.
Yeah, it's in your best interest to do. So you're not going to find a law that says thou shalt not cremate or thou shalt not burn. Because I'm going to show you where we did burn bodies. Where the Most High had cats burnt to a crisp. Right? But it wasn't in the let's get rid of them for convenience or let's cremate because that's what the thing is to do. It was because these things is wicked. And I don't want their remembrance on the earth. Right? So, I mean, let's think about it. What happened with Aaron's sons? Aaron's sons. What happened to them? Didn't they just burn? They burned alive, right? He burned them alive. He burned them alive to a crisp. Why? Because no remembrance. We're not going to have a burying place for them, for you to mourn, for you to remember. Right? So before I jump, go to Genesis 25 and 10. Yeah. Just as a reminder, Genesis 25 and 10. Read that.
The book of Genesis chapter 25 verse 10. The field which Abraham purchased of the sons of Heth,
Right.
there was Abraham buried,
Right.
and Sarah his wife.
Right. So Abraham was buried there. Sarah, his wife, was buried there. Remember, Sarah died before Abraham. So they put her in the cave. Abraham died. They put him in the cave. Let's go to Genesis 47 and 37. And what I'm doing is I'm just going through Genesis to show you. Let's look at what one family did when it came to burial. Let's look at what Abraham did with his wife. Let's look at what his children did. It's very important. What did they follow? What did the righteous do? Right? So Genesis 47 and verse 27. And I'm going to say this. Every righteous man you read about in the Bible, he was buried. Every righteous man you read about in the Bible was buried. Moses, it said he was buried. said he went up into the mountain and died, and it said, and he buried him. That he was the Most High. No, remember, nobody was there with Moses when he died.
They don't know his body.
And they said that nobody knew where his body was ever. It said he buried him. The Most High had him buried up or covered up in the ground. You see that?
Crazy.
Yeah, well, the Most High told him, go up there and die. So he probably already had it set up. You see that? Hey, or he just went into a cave, and that was that.
To the soul from.
Yeah, he might have went into the side of a mountain. Boom, that's that. Nobody, oh wow, where'd he go? You see that? Aaron, what happened when he went up? He went up on the hilltop, died. Same thing, buried. Like, when you read about all the righteous men, they were buried. But guess what? So were the wicked men. So were the wicked cats. The wicked kings that said they did what? And he was wicked and slept with his fathers and was buried in such and such and such and such. You read it all through Chronicles, you read it all through Kings. Because now, where you were buried showed how whack you were. Oh yeah, where you were buried showed that, you wasn't on, you was wicked. We'll get to it. Genesis 47 and verse 27.
The book of Genesis, chapter 47, verse 27.
Right?
And Israel dwelt in the land of Egypt
Right. So now we're skipping to Jacob. So we know Abraham and Sarah was buried. Right? Abraham had Isaac. Right? Isaac had Jacob. Now check this out. Read.
in the country of Goshen.
Right?
And they had possessions therein, and grew and multiplied exceedingly.
Go ahead.
And Jacob lived in the land of Egypt 17 years.
Right?
So the whole age of Jacob was 147 years.
Read.
And the time drew nigh that Israel must die.
Right, so Jacob was going to die. Go ahead.
And he called his son Joseph and said unto him, If now I have found grace in thy sight, put, I pray thee, thy hand under my thigh, and deal kindly and truly with me.
This is how we took an oath. This was like how we took oaths, and this look, you got to swear on this one. Put your hand under my thigh. This is how we took oath. It's like how they do pinky swear, right? This is how we took an oath. Go ahead.
Bury me not.
Bury me not. Go ahead.
I pray thee in Egypt.
He said, I'm going to die here, but I don't want to be buried here. Go ahead.
But I will lie with my fathers.
Right.
And thou shalt carry me out of Egypt,
Right.
and bury me in their burying place.
Right. You see that? Where you at?
Verse 30, last piece.
Read on.
And he said, I would do as thou hast said. And he said, Swear unto me. And he sware unto him. And Israel bowed himself upon the bed's head.
See, he said, bury me with my fathers in their burying place. Where was that? Where did Abraham? Field of Machpelah. He said, bring me back there, because that's what we did. Now, you gotta just, anybody been to a funeral? Just think about, we see one side of the funeral, right? But there's another side that we don't see as the people that are burying the dead, where they prep the body, right? They dig the grave. All the whole setup. I know funerals are a lot different now than they were back then, but they're not that much different. If anything, they were a lot more intimate way back in the day. Just think about it. There was no, what do they call them? The people that work in the funeral house?
Mortuaries.
What's the person that does the body? I forgot the name.
Funeral director?
No, the one that does the body.
Oh,
Mortician.
yeah.
Yeah, who was washing that body? The family. Or the close relatives. Who went to go wash Christ when he was in the sepulcher in his grave? Who went to go do that?
Mary
It was Mary. Right? It was Mary Magdalene, right? It was family. You see that? I say family because she rode with Christ, but There was no morticians who anointed him before his death. Who brought the spices to his death. It was all the people that he knew. There was no, like this mortician sat there and put makeup on him and did all that. No, we did that. You do that with your family. You wash that body, you wrap them. It was a little bit more intimate. You see that? It was a different process. What's that? Yeah.
This past weekend I met a man who owns a funeral home,
Okay.
and then his father just recently passed of COVID,
Mm-hmm.
and he was like thousands and thousands of bodies. I've put my hands to this work, and then I got a call that my father passed away, and they were like, "Do you want somebody else to pick him up, or do you want to, do this for your father?" And he's like, "Man, as much as it hurt, I was able to give my father the honor that he deserved and took care of him all the way through,
Yeah. So he set his pops up.
all the way through.
All the way through.
Went to the home, picked
Yeah.
him up,
Did all
carried
that.
him out, laid him in.
Yeah. Listen, burying bodies was a big deal for us. It was a big deal. To the point where if they saw you on the street, pick your body up and bring it somewhere to be buried. Like they wouldn't just leave that body there. Now, Dorothy said they changed the laws, and now in many places you cannot bury people in your yard. That's here in America, right? It gotta be. I was thinking about that the other day. I was like, yeah. If you could bury somebody in the front yard if you wanted to, but they would probably look at that weird. See, my grandparents are in Jamaica, so ain't no laws against that. You can just bury people wherever you want.
So you can't do it here?
I don't think so. I don't think you can. It's something to do maybe with contamination. I don't know.
So you got your own piece of land.
Well, maybe if you had your own piece of land, maybe you have city ordinances,
Right.
and then you have city limits and things like that. Like I don't think you could bury somebody in your land, in your yard, in the city limits. That would look a little bit more like some serial killer stuff.
Right.
Maybe. I don't know the law. I could be wrong, but I don't think you can just do that. Or else think about it. Cassidy saving double.
That's what says that
Man,
you
10 grand. Let's put Granny in the backyard. Dress her up nice. Right? Let's get her looking right. You know, and then say some prayer. Right?
Yeah, I would do the same.
But it's a business, so you can see why they probably have laws for these businesses to thrive. Remember, funeral homes make bread
Yes, they do.
because people die every day. Every day, it's whether it's natural causes, whether it's black on black crime, white on white crime, this, that, people are dying, man, woman, and child. So they make a lot of money.
Yep. Also say that when I got my life insurance, it was through the union, and they came to the house and they said, whatever you do, don't ever give because when you die, they ask for people's life insurance because they don't got money to put down. And what they do is they'll hit them. Say if your life insurance is $100 grand, they'll hit you for half of it right up front, and then they'll
Just to bury you?
Just to bury you. That's how they rate people. Half of it. So you only gonna get 50 grand out of their life insurance, and then you.
What if it don't cost 50 to bury me?
Oh, it don't. Naturally, it only costs 20 grand, but they're gonna add tax onto that, and they're gonna get. That's how they get people.
Really?
50 grand,
I
straight
thought
up.
insurance was for that purpose.
Well, that's the whole thing. That's what I thought. Because the guy was telling me, he goes, "This is what they do." He goes, "Don't ever give them your life insurance. Don't ever, because what they'll do is they'll call them up. They'll get half of it right up front, and then they're done." So,
Wow.
Yeah. So don't ever,
very good to
ever,
know.
ever give him your life insurance. That's what they'll ask for. Does he have life insurance? Yes or no? If he does, let us have his life insurance, and we'll take it out of that, and that's how they'll get you. So. that's
So,
what they do.
so you're saying it's better to pay for it up front,
It's better to pay for it up front.
but not everybody got 20 grand sitting around.
Yeah, that's what I told my grandmother. She had it was 25,000. She had 25,000 set aside just for that.
Wow.
You know,
Smart.
if not, they're gonna hit the whole family up for like 60 grand. You know, because remember, the casket that they put you in isn't the casket that they bury you in.
I know, they cheat
Yeah.
you.
They
That's
take
what I'm
you out-
saying.
They take you out of the casket, and then you
Bro.
pay like 80 grand for the casket yourself, and then they take you out of it and they put somebody else in there. Then they do the same thing.
I don't need all that.
Bro, it's crazy.
Put me in that wooden box, that paper wooden box.
Yeah.
You know, the paper one that the donuts come in. Put me in one of them.
Well, you could rent them now too.
Or we rent one.
Yeah.
Just make sure my garments fly, but everything else, bro, I don't need all that extra. I don't need to put it on my family. That's crazy.
Come.
It's crazy. Go ahead and hand up, sis.
I was just saying that there's like packages, they don't tell you that.
Oh, shit.
And cause I know people who own them.
Yeah.
And you can get a whole package deal and bury someone for probably $5,000 or $6,000.
Yeah.
So what
Right.
you tell them is, I have $5,000, because if not, then they're gonna hit you with that. And what they do is they call your insurance company and they hold that money is what they do. Cause it's only gonna take you about 1,800 to dig a hole in the ground. That's what they really need to get the
Project started to get the plot.
Right, so it is best, you know, that if you do have that, which that's what most people don't have, where they keep them out forever, they take up that money to dig the hole in the ground, and then the rest of it, that's what they do. But yeah, you can put someone away nicely, for about $5,000, $6,000.
Brothers, get your muscles up. You gotta dig that hole from that brother's out there just digging a grave. Yeah, but see, there's a lot that goes into burial. And there, you know, it was the last thing you can do to show that respect for that person. You know, well, and we're gonna go through some other instances. Where are we at?
I finished chapter 47.
Go to 47:30. We'll go to Genesis 49 and 28. Genesis 49 and verse 28. And all I'm doing is just jumping through some chapters to show what did Abraham and his descendants do when it came to their body being now dead. How do we dispose of the bodies? Right? So Genesis 49:28. Read that.
The book of Genesis, chapter 49, verse 28. All these are the 12 tribes of Israel.
Right, so this is when Jacob gathered his 12 sons to give them what would befall them in the last days. Go ahead.
And this is it that their father spake unto them and blessed them.
Read.
And every one according to his blessing he blessed them.
Right.
And he charged them and said unto them, I am to be gathered unto my people.
Right.
Bury me with my fathers in the cave.
Yeah, you see that? My last request is bury me where?
With my fathers in the cave.
Go ahead.
That is in the field of Ephron the Hittite.
Go ahead.
In the cave. That is in the field of Machpelah. Which is before Mamre. In the land of Canaan.
Go ahead.
Which Abraham bought with the field of Ephron the Hittite for a possession of a burying place.
That was the sole purpose of buying this place, was a burying place. Go ahead.
There they buried Abraham.
Right.
And Sarah his wife.
Go ahead.
There they buried Isaac and Rebekah his wife.
Isaac and Rebekah were buried there. See that? Go ahead.
And there I buried Leah.
And Leah was buried there. You see this? Read on.
The purchase of the field and of the cave that is therein was from the children of Het.
Read on. Yeah, read the verse 33.
And when Jacob had made an end of commanding his sons, he gathered up his feet into the bed and yielded up the ghost and was gathered unto his people.
Keep reading. You're going to read the verse 6, 50 and verse 1. Read.
The book of Genesis chapter 50 verse 1. And Joseph fell upon his father's face and wept upon him and kissed him. And Joseph commanded his servants, the physicians, to embalm his father.
Right. So now we go to this process and you're like, well, why are they embalming this man? Well, it wasn't our custom to embalm the way the Egyptians embalmed. But what were they going to do? Well, they were going to pay respect to Jacob. The thing with the Egyptians is they went a little bit longer. They went longer than the 7 days that the scripture said. But then there was something significant also. They went 30 days, but then Joseph wanted him to be brought back to Canaan to be recognized also. So there was a 30-day memorial for Jacob. Watch, read on. Read to verse 6.
And the physicians embalmed Israel.
Right.
And 40 days were fulfilled for him.
40 days, excuse me, go ahead.
For so are fulfilled the days of those which are embalmed.
Go ahead.
And the Egyptians mourned for him 60 days.
That's what the Egyptians were on. They had this 40-day memorial. Yeah, 40-day memorial. Go ahead.
Verse 4. And when the days of his mourning were past, Joseph spake unto the house of Pharaoh, saying, If now I have found grace in your eyes, speak, I pray you, in the ears of Pharaoh, saying, My father made me swear, saying, Lo, I die. In my grave which I have digged for me in the land of Canaan.
He already had his grave prepared. In the grave that I have dug for me. Think about it. He already had his grave set up. He already had his site pulled out. Go ahead.
There shalt thou bury me.
Right.
Now therefore let me go up, I pray thee, and bury my father, and I will come again.
Right.
Verse 6. And Pharaoh said, Go up and bury thy father, according as he made thee swear.
Jump to verse 12.
The book of Genesis chapter 50 verse 12. And his sons did unto him according as he commanded them.
They did what he commanded. Go ahead.
For his sons carried him into the land of Canaan and buried him in the cave of the field of Machpelah, which Abraham bought with the field for a possession of a burial place of Ephron the Hittites before Mamre.
You just got to think about it. Why so much trouble? Just to bury a man. He could have just been buried in Egypt. Soil is soil, right? Dirt is dirt. But there was a significance about being buried where in the plot of your people, where your family was. There was a significance in it. There was a glory that came with that. You see that? Go ahead.
Verse 14. And Joseph
on that. Right? Verse 13. Jump down to verse 24.
Verse 24. And Joseph said unto his brethren,
Here's Joseph's time. Right? Joseph's about to die. Go ahead.
I die, and the Most High will surely visit you, and bring you out of this land into the land which he sware to Abraham,
Right.
to Isaac, and to Jacob.
Go ahead.
And Joseph took an oath of the children of Israel, saying, God will surely visit you, and ye shall carry up my bones from hence.
Who took Joseph's bones?
Moses.
Moses. Right? That was one of the last things Moses did on the way out of Egypt. He grabbed up Joseph's bones. You see that? Go ahead.
So Joseph died, being 110 years old,
Go ahead.
and they embalmed him,
Right.
and he was put in a coffin in Egypt.
See, he was dealt with after the custom of the Egyptians, because that's what they did. The sarcophagus, right? They would wrap him up in the sarcophagus, then they would put him in a coffin. They would wrap him in the linens, and what would they do? They would decompose very slow.
So technically, being in a coffin is actually not a custom of ours too, because we were actually buried in caves.
We were buried in caves. You don't really read about coffins.
Okay.
You don't really. This is the first of a coffin that the scriptures mention. You see that? It's the first instance of it. Now I'm not saying that we didn't do it.
Right.
But I'm gonna show you that in many instances there was no coffin.
Right.
There was no coffin. Watch. What they had up. Oh, okay. Right. So we know what Joseph did, right? Jump over to they involved him and he was put in the coffin. Go to Exodus 13 and 19. We got other readers. Yeah, when you look up the word coffin, it's the first instance of the word coffin in the scriptures. This is all the way in Genesis, the last chapter. So let's see what happened in Exodus. Read.
Exodus chapter 13, verse 19.
Right,
And Moses took the bones of Joseph with him,
right.
for he had straitly sworn to the children of Israel, saying, God will surely visit you,
Right.
and ye shall carry up my bones away hence with you.
Now these bones, who buried them, actually? Moses took them, but who buried them? Moses?
Joshua?
It was Joshua. So think about how long these bones was traveling.
Dang.
They were just traveling with brothers to get to a certain place.
That's over 40 years.
Oh yeah, way over 40 years.
Yeah.
Way over 40 years. Because remember, they didn't go immediately walking through the wilderness for 40 years. When we got into the wilderness, we were there for a little time. You see that? And then the 40 years, and then, you know, Joshua got to get to Jericho. We got to get past over to the Jordan. He got to do all that walking. So there was some time. So let's go to Joshua 24:32. And all I'm doing is just going through a sequence of events, dealing with burial and these bones. And, you know, like the scriptures say, he that have the ear, let him hear. He that have the ear, let him hear. Go to Joshua 24:32.
Joshua chapter 24, verse 32.
Right?
And the bones of Joseph,
Right?
which the children of Israel brought up out of Egypt,
Right?
buried they in Shechem,
They were buried in Shechem. Go ahead.
in a parcel of ground which Jacob bought of the sons of Hamor.
You see that? So Jacob bought some land. He wasn't buried there, but Jacob had land. And that's where Joseph was, his son was buried. Go ahead.
The father of Shechem,
Right?
for 100 pieces of silver.
Right? Go ahead.
And it became the inheritance of the children of Joseph.
Right. So Ephraim and Manasseh end up getting that land as their inheritance. But you see, they went through all that trouble not to take him to Machpelah, but to take him to another location and bury his bones.
Crazy.
So let's go to Deuteronomy. Because we got to see, even when a man sinned, what did you do? What did you do with him? Well, the law tells us what you do with a man that died a death worthy of sin. Deuteronomy, because we think, well, okay, you know, righteous men were buried. What about a sinner? What about the sinners? What happened with them? Deuteronomy 21 and verse 22. And you know, I got a few points here. Nothing really in order besides that Genesis and those scriptures that I went through. None of this is really in order. There's no order to this. Deuteronomy 21 and verse 22.
It's the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 21 and verse 22.
Go ahead.
And if a man have committed a sin worthy of death,
Go ahead.
and he be put to death,
Mm-hmm.
and thou hang him on a tree,
Mm-hmm.
his body shall not remain all night upon the tree.
Right. So we didn't hang like how they did us in slavery. How they hung us to the point where they had to call us strange fruit because niggas was just rotting on trees. Right? The law said if you hung a man, you crucified a man, they didn't hang him up there until the next day. You took him off that night or that evening. Go ahead.
But thou shalt in any wise bury him
Thou
that
shalt
day.
what? Thou shalt what?
Bury him.
No, burn him up because it's easier.
Bury him.
Well, he's a sinner. Like, he don't need no dignity.
Bury him.
Yeah, we buried him. We buried him regardless. You see that? So, if you want to say, well, here's the law. The law says to bury a man that is that sinned a sin unto death.
Right.
Right? But then we know all the righteous men, they were buried. They were buried in their sepulchres. They were buried in their father's houses. They were buried in their fields that they bought. David was buried in the city of David. Now, usually, we didn't bury men in the cities. They were buried on the outskirts. But David was buried in the city. He was the first. He was the first. All the other kings, remember, there was only Saul and then David.
Right.
David was the first king to be buried in the city of David. You see that? And other righteous kings followed. But not every king was buried there. Well, I got the scriptures to show it, right? So, how do we deal with our enemies? How do we deal with our enemies? Because you think, well, they're our enemies, right? How did the Greeks deal with their enemies and the Romans deal with their enemies? Did they just burn them? They just make a heap and burn them? Remember, anybody watch Schindler's List?
Yeah.
Were they just burning the bodies? Or weren't they making mass graves and burning them?
Calling them up.
Or am I tripping?
They were piling them up.
Yeah,
They did
piling them up.
They did two different things. They piled them up, burned them, or they dug holes.
In this
They threw in
mass
holes.
grave. Yeah,
Mm.
yeah. The Germans, right? Edomite on Edomite crime. Go to 1 Kings chapter 2 and verse 31. Now you gotta know the story, but this is gonna go into Joab. You had Joab and Abner. Joab was the lieutenant in Saul's army, and he killed Abner, which was David's lieutenant. So now we come all these years, and Solomon is in power. And Solomon tells Benaiah, he says, "Listen, go kill Joab, right? Go kill this man because he shed innocent blood." Go ahead.
1 Kings chapter 2, verse 31. And the king said unto him, do as he has said, and fought upon him.
Right, because Solomon was calling for Joab, for Joab. He sent his man to go get Joab. Joab was like, "Nah, I'll die right here at the foot of the altar. I ain't going nowhere. I'd rather just die right here." So then, I believe it was Benaiah. He came back to Solomon like, "Look, he don't want to leave from where he's at." Solomon said, "Kill him right there. Fall up on him." Right? Go ahead.
And bury him.
And what?
And bury him.
Think about it. This man was an enemy of the throne. But he said, bury him. Because there was some dignity in this. You see, think about it. I'm pointing these things out. And I know they seem small. But think about it. Who wants to go through so much trouble to bury a man? When you don't have to, you can just toss his body and let him stink the place up. Let the dogs eat him. You can burn him up, right? You can feed him to some wild beasts, right? Isn't that easy? But we took the care for the bodies even in death. Read on.
That thou mayest take away the innocent blood which Joab shed from me and from the house of my father.
Right, let's go to 1 Kings 11 and 14. Let's fast forward a little bit through history. So remember, and this is going to be this recollect on the time of David. Now, remember, David had Edomite cities, right? And watch, read this.
1 Kings chapter 11, verse 14.
So after David died, the Edomites, they started to get a little disgruntled with Solomon. They were trying to test Solomon, like, okay, so what's he going to do? David's dead. We ain't got to bow to Solomon, right? Who's Solomon? Go ahead.
And the Lord stirred up an adversary unto Solomon,
Go ahead.
Hadad the Edomite.
Now, this is an Edomite, right? You would think, okay, Edomite. How do we deal with Esau? Go ahead.
He was of the king's seed in
So
Edom.
he was of the seed, right? He was Edomite indeed. Go ahead.
For it come to pass, when David was in Edom, and Joab, the captain of the host, was gone up to bury the
To
slain.
do what?
To bury the slain.
David had his captain up there burying the men of Edom, all the men that they slayed. Again, think about it. Why? Because there was a level of respect that you were given to those bodies, to those men. There was a level, the word I'm looking for is dignity. If you died and you weren't buried, you were without dignity. There was no dignity in that. There was no dignity in your body being burnt up or ate by the dogs or just thrown into a river. There was no dignity in not having a proper burial. Go ahead.
After he had smitten every male in Edom.
How many males?
Every male in Edom.
He smit every male of Edom and then had to go bury all them dudes. You see that? Go ahead.
For 6 months did Joab remain there with all Israel.
Think about that. 6 months he was killing people and burying them. Go ahead.
Until he had cut off every male in Edom.
Right. Go to 1 Kings 13 and verse 26. Now, I don't know if you guys remember this story, but this was the story about the man of God that was sent on a mission to deliver a message, and the Most High said, don't eat nothing, don't drink nothing. And what did he do? He got tricked and he ate and he drank and he left and he died.
Gone.
So check this out. We're gonna fast forward, right? So he dies. Read 1 Kings 13:26.
1 Kings chapter 13, verse 26. And when the prophet that brought him back from the way heard thereof, he said, it is the man of God, who was disobedient unto the word of the Lord.
He was what?
Disobedient unto the word of the Lord.
See, this man was disobedient. Go ahead.
Therefore the Lord had delivered him unto the lion,
Go ahead.
which had torn him
Read.
and slain him,
Go ahead.
according to the word of the Lord, which he spake unto him.
You're gonna read to verse 31. Go ahead.
And he spake to his sons, saying, saddle me the ass. And he saddled him. And he went and found his carcass cast in the way, and the ass and the lion standing by the carcass. The lion had not eaten the carcass, nor torn the
You
ass.
see that? The lion killed him, but he didn't eat him. Go ahead.
And the prophet took up the carcass of the man of the Most High,
Right.
and laid it upon the ass.
And laid it upon the ass. So he hopped off the ass, threw the dead body on the ass. Go ahead.
And brought it back. And the old prophet came to the city to mourn
Right.
and to bury him.
To mourn and to bury him. Read.
And he laid his carcass in his own grave.
So he had to take the time to dig a grave for this man. He basically got this dude killed. If you read the story, he's the one that kind of deceived him. But then he went and took time to bury this man, to dig a grave, to carry the carcass back, dig a grave. Go ahead.
And they mourned over him.
Right, because part of the death process was to have proper mourning. That's why you bury, so you give people a chance to mourn. Go ahead.
Saying, alas, my brother. And it came to pass, after he had buried him, that he spake to his sons,
Right.
saying,
Right.
when I am dead,
Read.
then bury me in the sepulchre wherein the man of God is buried.
Go ahead.
Lay my bones beside his bones.
Yeah, he said, bury me there too. Don't burn me up. Don't cast me to the dogs. Take the time and give me that proper burial. So, when did we burn? When did we burn bodies? Because we did burn bodies. Ooh, baby. What?
We burn bodies when let's see. When I guess when they did wrong, when they was wicked as hell.
Well, we just read some instances.
Yeah, well I have one
What?
in Joshua.
Okay.
Achan.
I'm gonna get there. I'm gonna get there to that one. And
yeah.
remember, burning a body and cremating a body to ash, two different things. I'll show you. When you cremate the body or incinerate it, listen, I was sitting there today watching the whole process of cremation. I was looking at these dudes cremate bodies, and I'm like, man, that is a sad job. What do? They wrap them up. They put them in the little donut box looking thing. They put them in there, and they push them in the incinerator. And then when they open it up, and then I was watching one chick. She was sick. She was nutty. She was going through like what happens every 10 minutes to the body. She was breaking it down. It takes 2.5 hours to cremate a body. 2.5 hours. So, like after 10, it's so hot, 1700 degrees. The first 10 minutes, what happens? Your face skin melts. That starts to come off first. It's the soft skin. All this, the cheeks stay. And after another 10 minutes, the fat, the muscles start to shrink. Your body starts to shrink. Just like when you cook a piece of steak.
Right.
Steak be this big. When you're done cooking it, it's this big. You're like, wait a minute, that was 15 ounces. Now it's 4, right?
Yeah.
But basically, think about it. A 200-pound man, when he's done being cremated, is about 3 to 9 pounds of ash. 3 to 9 pounds of ash. That's your bones, your skeletal structure, whatever other ash is there. But it takes a while, man. Then the wildest part is when you, like the ash that you see, You know that ash that's in the urn, that's not how you come out that oven. They scrape you out in chunks. The bones is chunks. They put it into a thing called a crema. It's a bone crusher. It's a cream of something. It's a little gizmo. They put your bones in there, they spin it, and you just hear it crushing up the bones into powder.
Damn.
And then they just pour you into a urn, whatever the family brings. You see that? So it's not what you think. Like you sitting there for 10 minutes and you just melt away into ash. They got to do a process, but it takes a while. That fire is shooting down on you. A lot of it is just the heat. It's not even the fire. It's the heat that melts the skin. You know, melts the brain. All the skin opens up. Then the bones are exposed. The pancreas starts to char, and while that's happening, you know, all the juice and moisture is trying to escape your body. So that's shooting all over the place. I know it's kind of gross. But that's what happens because everything is bursting from the heat. And then boom, so all the juices and all the embalming fluids and all that stuff is going everywhere. And then, yeah. Now, with that little description of cremation, right? I'm trying to figure out, where did we burn people to the point of 1700 degrees? The only fire you read about that was that hot was when Daniel and the 3 holy children were in that oven. And they said the fire was so hot it was burning the men that were putting wood in the fire. It was so hot. The fire was jumping out at them. But nowhere did we have 700-degree torches, 1700-degree torches where we cremated a body to ash. Now, go to Joshua 7. Right? You call it. Go to Joshua 7.
Okay.
This is important. This is important. Because if you don't know what we did and what the Bible is saying, you don't want to make the wrong mistakes for your life. Joshua 7 and verse 15.
The book of Joshua, chapter 7, verse 15.
Go ahead.
And it shall be that he that is taken with the accursed thing
Right.
shall be burnt with fire.
Right, and I went here just, you know, we're talking about Achan and the accursed thing and what the Most High commanded. See, this is the one thing we got to realize. This is what the Most High said. That whoever is caught with this thing, they got to get burnt. They got to get burnt with fire. Go ahead.
He and all that he hath,
Right.
because he hath transgressed the covenant of the Lord, and because he hath wrongfully,
He had wrought folly.
because he hath wrought folly in Israel.
Right, now jump down to verse 24. Let's get to the meat.
Verse 24.
Yes, sir.
And Joshua and all Israel with him took Achan, the son of Zerah, and the silver, and the garment, and the wedge of gold, and his sons, and his daughters, and his oxen, and his asses, and his sheep, and his tent, and all that he had.
Right.
And they brought them unto the valley of Achor. And Joshua said, why hast thou troubled us? And the Lord shall trouble thee this day.
Right.
And all Israel stoned him with stones.
So they stoned him with stones. Read.
And burned them with fire.
And they did what?
Burned them with fire.
Right. The them was what? Who was the them? I'm one.
His family.
Who else?
All his family, his animals, all his possessions. Everything.
I'm glad you said that. How do you get rid of gold and silver?
Burn it, baby.
You gotta burn it. You gotta burn it. The Most High didn't want nobody to have that garment. Remember, what was the cursed things? It wasn't the cattle.
No.
It wasn't his wife or his tent. It was the fact that he buried the gold under the tent. It was the fact that he stole the silver. Listen, I believe when you read in the Josephus about that garment, it said that garment was interlaced with gold. It was gold woven like the priest's garment. You know how it said we have cunning works of gold? You know, War was talking about it. War was like, yeah, that Babylonian garment, when you read in the Josephus, was gold, like damn near gold plated. That's why he wanted it. How else do you get rid of a golden garment? You gotta melt that boy down. You got to melt it down with fervent heat. But this is very, very key. They said they stoned him. Then watch, read.
And burned them with fire after they had stoned him with stones.
Right. Read verse 26.
And they raised over him a great heap of stones unto this day.
Well, what did they do? Put a heap of stones over ash? What did they do? Did they put a heap of stones over ashes?
No.
They put a heap of stones over his bones. They didn't burn him to the point where his bones disintegrated. You see that? Now, if we're talking about the cremation process as it's done today, you're burned to ash. They didn't sit there and burn him for two and a half hours. There's no fire in the wilderness that hot that was going to burn him to that level of heat. They charred him up. They charred him, right? But they were able to put a heap of stones over him. Now you're thinking like, well, nah, that might be his ashes, right? Read on. Watch.
So the Lord turned from the fierceness of his anger.
Right.
Wherefore the name of that place was called the Valley of Achor unto this day.
Right. So let's go to Joshua chapter 8 and verse 29. Let's deal with another man, King Ai, right? Or the king of Ai. Let's deal with him because he was off. He wicked, right? The heathen coming up against Joshua. Let's see what happened with him. Joshua 8:29.
Book of Joshua chapter 8 verse 29. And the king of Ai he hanged on a tree,
right,
until eventide.
So they hung this man on a tree. Now remember, the Bible says that when you hung a man on a tree, you hung him to the evening and you buried him, right? Check this out, read.
And as soon as the sun was down,
right,
Joshua commanded that they should take his carcass down from the tree.
According to the law, read.
And cast it at the entering of the gate of the city.
Read.
And raised thereupon a great heap of stones.
A what?
A great heap of stones.
Because that's what you did with wicked men. You put a heap of stones on them. You didn't take the time to dig out the ground and you lay the ass down and just put stones on top of them. You see that? That's how you knew, like, oh, that cat, ooh, he was wicked. Oh, I got more. I got more. Watch, read on. But but this is the thing, you still covered them. You still at least gave them some degree of dignity.
Right.
Where they weren't getting picked apart by animals. Because that's zero dignity. When you got animals and birds pecking your dead eyes out, right, and wolves coming and ripping you apart, fighting over you, there's zero dignity in that. But you put the stones on them, there's a level of dignity. But we ain't going to take the time to bury you in the earth. So if he gets uncovered, or if a wolf comes and digs him out, right, because you know a wolf is coming to do that. Or some type of wild beast is going to dig them stones, right? There was no dignity in that. Why? Because these are wicked men. Achan was a wicked man. He died to death. And the king of Ai, he was wicked as hell. Right? Go to 2 Samuel 8 and 17. Let's deal with another man that was highly off. What would they do with him to signify his offness? And who is this man, you say? 2 Samuel 18 and 17? 18, 17, I'm sorry.
The book of 2 Samuel, chapter 18, verse 17.
And who was this wicked man?
And they took Absalom.
They took who?
Absalom.
You know what Absalom did? We know what Absalom was on, right? Trying to rob the throne. He was counseling for himself, sleeping with his father's wives. Right? We know, had his pops on the run. We knew Absalom. He was about that life, right? He was trill, right? He was on that trill life. Right? He wasn't about nothing righteous. What happened with him? Go ahead.
And cast him into a great pit.
Go ahead.
In the wood.
Right?
And laid a very great heap of stones upon him.
You see that they put the stones on him. What did that signify? Like, this dude, he wasn't worthy of the good burial. He wasn't worthy of his father's sepulcher. Remember, David already had his sepulcher set up. Right? They already had that plotted out before anything. Before David died, they had that set up. And they knew David's gonna die here, and all his sons would be put in this same place. Now Absalom, they left his ass right in the woods.
Damn.
And put some stones over him. Go ahead.
And all Israel fled, every one to his tent.
Right. So why did I go here? Well, to show you that with Achan, they didn't cremate him. They burned him, but they didn't char him to the point where his bones was ash. Another instance, Saul. Saul's body was burned. Did y'all know that? Saul was beheaded, burned. Right? Let's go to 1 Samuel 31.
That's right. They hung him first.
No, they didn't hang him first. Oh no, you're right. They did. They beheaded him.
Right.
But what I'm trying to show you is who burned them. Who commanded them to be burned?
Oh, that's right.
Right. See, there was reasonings behind burning a body. So Saul, he's at war. Him, Jonathan, their men, they get overran by the Philistines. They fall on their swords. Right? And what happens? Read 1 Samuel 31:6.
The book of 1 Samuel, chapter 31, verse 6.
Right?
So Saul died, and his 3 sons,
Right.
and his armor bearer,
Go ahead.
and all his men that same day together. And when the men of Israel that were on the other side of the valley, and they that were on the other side Jordan, saw that the men of Israel fled, and that Saul and his sons were dead, they forsook the cities,
Right.
and fled.
Right?
And the Philistines came and dwelt in them.
Right. So when you see your leader fall, what do? You run. You run for the high hills. Right? Ain't no leadership. They forsook the city. The Philistines came and overtook the cities. Go ahead.
And it came to pass on the morrow,
The next day, read.
when the Philistines came to strip the slain,
Right?
they found Saul and his 3 sons fallen in the Mount Gilboa,
Right, read.
and they cut off his
So
head.
they desecrated the body. That's first and foremost. You cut a man's head off, you're desecrating his body. Especially after being dead. Right? They didn't behead him while he was alive. They did it while after he was dead. Read on.
And stripped off his armor,
Took all the armor, read.
and sent into the land of the Philistines round about,
Read.
to publish it in the house of their idols.
So they sent his head and his armor as a sign. We've taken over the Israelites. We've killed Saul. Right? We've won. Ain't that what Judith did with Holofernes?
Come on.
Cut his head off, put it in the bag, brought it back to the city. Got him. Right? That was the sign. Right? Go ahead.
And among the people.
Right?
And they put his armor in the house of Ashtaroth.
Read.
And they fastened his body to the wall of Bethshan.
But they did what to his body?
Fastened his body to the wall of
You
Bethshan.
see that? They fastened his body into an idol's temple.
Damn.
Think about that. They hung this man's dead body. That's what they was doing with that body.
That's true.
What type of sacrifice they were setting up.
Damn.
Right? Go ahead.
And when the inhabitants of Jabesh Gilead heard of that which the Philistines had done to Saul,
Right?
all the valiant men arose and went all night and took the body of Saul and the bodies of his sons from the wall of Bethshan.
So think about it. We just lost the whole city. We just lost. The men ran away, but then they're like, wait a minute, they got his body. Gotta go back.
Yep.
Gotta go back and deal with these Philistines, right? Why? What was the significance? Just to have the body? Nah, to give some type of dignity to Saul. Even though, remember, we know about Saul. Right? We know about Saul. Covetous. Murderous. To try to kill David, try to kill his son. Liar, cheater, witchcraft. Didn't deal with the Most High. Was rebellious.
Right.
All these negatives on Saul. Right? But look. No matter what, how do we deal? Go ahead.
All the valiant men arose and went all night and took the body of Saul and the bodies of his sons from the wall of Bethshan.
Go ahead.
And came to Jabesh and burnt them there.
They did what?
Burnt them there.
See, they burnt the bodies, but did they burn them in let's cremate for for quickness of getting rid of the body, no, they burned them. Well, think about it. They had them hanging on an idol's temple, on an idol's wall. Who knows what was going on with those bodies? I would have burnt them too. To burn away any filth, purge away any filth that might have been on those bodies. Right? Go ahead.
And they took their bones.
And they took their what?
Their bones.
See, they didn't burn them to the point where they just incinerated them. They still had their bones intact. Go ahead.
And buried them under a tree.
And buried them under a tree. Read on.
At Jabesh. And fasted 7 days.
Right, you see that? So Saul and his men were burnt, but their bones were still buried. Because it wasn't about burning them to the point of cremation and urn. That was more of a cleansing of the body.
Right.
Right? We don't know what these Philistines they were feeling. Who knows what they were doing, what type of sacrifice they were doing with Saul's body. What's that?
This story reminds me of a story. So in the frontera, you have the cartel called the Zetas, right? And the original founder of the Zetas went to prison. And so he went to prison, then a new generation, that's what they're called, new generation Zetas, started taking over. And they started acting crazy. To where the guy, the original founder, he was like, look, get in order. And the new generation said, no, we're not gonna get in order. So where the original founder and the new generation started going at war with each other. Anyways, the original founder, he died, and his family tried to have a burial for him. But the new generation, Zetas, a younger crew, came during his burial service. During his burial service, murked all his family, got his body, chopped him up, shot at him, burned it up and everything like that, and then kind of just
Left it somewhere.
well, not like put it on walls and everything like that.
Yeah, because
And then, as you said, it's like the lack of dignity and stuff like that. You know what I mean?
there's no dignity in that.
Yeah.
There's no dignity. Let's go here. Go to second Chronicles 34:1. Think about it. Korah and Dathan, when you read about them, they said that the earth opened, swallowed them, and burned them. What was the Most High doing? He was eradicating. Think about Sodom and Gomorrah. He burnt the hell out of them. They was, come on. But see, when that fire comes in, that's a complete eradication of some wickedness. Again, look at Aaron's sons. They were burned right there on their feet. That was to forcefully eradicate wickedness. Read 2 Chronicles 34:1.
2 Chronicles chapter 34 and verse 1.
Right?
Joash,
No, not Joshua. Josiah.
Josiah
Right.
was 8 years old when he began to
Reign.
reign, and he reigned in Jerusalem 130 years, and he did that which was right in the sight of the Lord, and walked in the ways of David his father, and inclined neither to the right hand nor to the left. For in the 8 years of his reign, while he was yet young, he began to seek after the God of David his father, and in the 12th year he began to purge Judah and Jerusalem from the high places and the groves and the carved images and the molten images.
So he started to purge Judah. Purge them, right? Go ahead.
And they break down the altars of Balaam in his presence.
Because one of the problems with a lot of the kings was that they didn't stand for wickedness, a lot of them, but they didn't destroy the altars of the other gods. Like Asa, who let the gods' altars stand. So what did that let the people do? They could always go back to idol worship. But see, Josiah, he was like, nah, we ain't doing none of that. We're not letting these altars stand. We're gonna eradicate Judah and Jerusalem of all the idol worship. Go ahead.
and the images that were on high above them he cut down.
Go ahead.
And the groves and the carved images and the molten images he brake in pieces and made dust of them and strode it of the grave of them that had sacrificed unto them, and he burnt the bones of the priests.
Now, this man went in and burnt the bones of the priests. See, this king wasn't playing. But what priest was it? It was the priest of the idols. It was the priest that was sacrificing to these idols. You see, he dealt with them like they were the idols. Why? What point was he trying to get across by burning up the priest? I don't even want y'all to know how to even sacrifice to these gods. I don't even want you to even remember that there were gods and priests to this deity. That's the extreme measures that he was going to when he said he burnt their bones. He had to. He had to. Go ahead. Read verse 5.
Verse 5. And he burnt the bones of the priests upon their altar.
Right.
And cleansed Judah and Jerusalem.
See, this is the extreme cleansing that he had to do. Go to Ecclesiastes 6 and verse 3. So yeah, there was men. So my mom is Esau and she wants to be cremated. Is that okay for me to do since she's not an Israelite? No, it's not okay. Remember, we just read the story of Joab, an Israelite, burying the bodies of Edomites. You see that? Remember, it wasn't cremation. You probably got to rewatch the beginning of the class, but that didn't come around until the Greco-Roman Empire, which wasn't that long ago. It wasn't that long ago. You're talking about around the time of Christ. And a little bit before, 70 AD, 1 AD. You're talking about around those times. So, no, it's not okay to cremate her. If that's her wish, that's her wish. You see that? That's her wish. You do what she wishes, but we didn't cremate, even the nations. Remember, when you read in the New Testament, it said that we had burying places for the strangers. We bought whole fields just to bury the strangers. That's how much burial was a thing in our custom. You see that? So Joab, being David's man, was up there burying Edomites after he killed them for 6 months. So no, you wouldn't want to. It wouldn't be your custom to bury your mom, but also you got to go about her wishes. That's the thing. She's not in the mind of what the scriptures are saying, so that's the unfortunate thing. You know, you got to go according to her wishes. If she write her will out or whatever the case may be, that's in her will. You can't not go against that. What do they call it? Like what do they call it?
Will, testament.
Will and testament or something like that. Yeah. You got to watch the beginning. But yeah, even if they were Edomites, we still buried them. We still buried them. Yeah, somebody gave me a thumbs down. It's dope. It's dope, son. I wonder if somebody comes in here, thumbs down, and leaves. Don't even listen, don't even watch. Maybe it's my face or my voice. I don't know what it is. I always get thumbs down. Ecclesiastes 6 and 3.
Ecclesiastes Chapter 6 and verse 3.
Check this out, read.
If a man beget 100 children,
Because that's a great blessing. Read on.
and live many years,
That's a blessing also, read.
so that the days of his years be many,
Right?
and his soul be not filled with good,
Go ahead.
and also that he have no burial.
And also that he have no burial. Read on.
I say that an untimely birth is better than he.
See that? Whew. It's better to have a miscarriage, man. It's better that he wasn't born, that he wasn't have no burial. That's how deep burying the dead was. You can have all the children in the world, all the riches, live a long, hoary, gray hair, but if nobody was there to bury you, man, listen, you was as good as useless.
So basically, it's an honor.
It's an honor. There's a level of dignity. There's a level of dignity to be buried, to be mourned. It showed a level of dignity. Check this out. Go to 2 Chronicles 16 and 14. still dealing with the burning. And this is a very important part. And Ashabath, I know you're on here, and you had asked about this question, so that's why I put this together real quick. And I know the brother threw out this scripture, 2 Chronicles 6 and 14, and everybody was like, oh, see, we did burn the bodies. And wrong.
6 and 14 or 16?
16 and 14. 2 Chronicles 6 and 14. This is going to be talking about King Asa. Now, King Asa was a righteous king until right towards the end, where he was doing a little bit of negative. He got told about it, and he didn't want to hear that. So he cast off the high priest. I didn't get the hell out of my face. I ain't messing with you. Right? I ain't trying to hear all that. So he dies, but how was he treated in his death? Well, read 2 Chronicles 16 and 14.
2 Chronicles chapter 16 and verse 14.
Go ahead.
And they buried him.
Wait, they did what?
And they buried him.
So King Asa was what?
Buried him.
They buried him. You can't get away from that. He was buried. Read.
In his own sepulchres.
In his own sepulcher, right? We know what the sepulcher is. I'll read the definition of sepulcher. Hold where you at. Sepulcher, definition, to bury, to enter in, to entomb. A grave, a place in which a dead body of a human being is entered, or a place destined for that purpose. Among the Jews, sepulchers were often excavations in rocks. You see that? So we would excavate the rocks and have a whole sepulcher big enough to lay family. Like Abraham, he had a sepulcher, he had a cave. Back then they just called it a cave in Machpelah, but it was a sepulcher where he was able to pull that wall back, go in, drop off Sarah, close it. Pull that wall back. Somebody dropped him off. Close it. Pull it back. Drop off his sons and their wives. So you got a whole cave somewhere with Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Rebecca, Leah, and Sarah's bones.
Damn.
Think about that. Imagine if they ever found that, which they never will. Which they never will. Most I don't want them to find that. Else they would have already found it.
Yep.
Right? So, that's what a sepulcher is. So it said that Asa was buried in his own sepulcher. Go ahead.
Which he had made for himself in the city of David.
See, he was buried in the city of David. Go ahead.
And laid him in a bed which was filled with sweet odors.
This is the thing with Asa. He was able to be buried in the city of David because he was a righteous king. Go ahead.
And diverse kinds of spices prepared by the apothecaries.
Right, so they made a bed which was filled with odors because that was part of the process. They would wrap the body in the linens. They would wrap the body with all types of frankincense, myrrh, cinnamon. Why? Well, because dead bodies stink, right? How do you get some of that filthy smell, that death smell? You perfume the place. Go ahead.
And they made a very great burning.
They made a what?
A very great burning.
See, and you look at that, you're like, oh, they lit him on fire. But it already said they buried him. That's first and foremost, right? They already said they buried him. Right? So let's jump over to Jeremiah real quick, 34 and verse 4. Let's see what they burned. See, the scriptures say through thy precepts, we get understanding. And you can't just go with one scripture and one definition, because when you define the word burn here in the Strong's, it says to cremate. But that wouldn't make sense. So let's read Jeremiah chapter 34 and verse 4.
Jeremiah chapter 34 and verse 4.
Right?
Yet hear the word of the Lord.
Right?
O Zedekiah,
Right?
king of Judah.
Right. So this is when the Most High was prophesying to Zedekiah, letting him know Nebuchadnezzar is going to come and overtake you, bow to him. And he's letting him know how he was going to die. Watch, read on.
Thus saith the Lord of thee,
Read.
thou shalt not die by the
So
sword,
you're not going to die by the sword. Read on.
but thou shalt die in
You're going
peace,
to die in peace. Read.
and with the burnings of thy fathers.
With the burnings of thy fathers. This is very important. They made a great burning to him. He said, with the burnings of thy father. Read.
The former kings which were before thee,
Go ahead.
So shall they burn odors.
So shall they do what?
Burn odors.
Wait, what did we burn?
Odors.
We burnt the odors, the incense, not the body. Y'all see that? We burnt incense, man. Go ahead.
For thee.
Read.
And they will lament thee.
Right?
Saying, Ah, Lord, for I have pronounced the word, saith the Lord.
Right. Now, let's see what they did with a wicked king. Go to 2 Chronicles 21 and verse 5. They buried him, not in the sepulcher of David, and something else didn't happen to a wicked king. Let's read about, who is this? Jehoram. Go ahead.
2 Chronicles chapter 21, verse 5.
Right.
Jehoram was 32 years old when he began to reign.
Go ahead.
And he reigned 8 years in Jerusalem.
Read on.
And he walked in the way of the kings of Israel.
Go ahead.
Like as did the house of Ahab.
Go ahead.
For he had the daughter of Ahab to wife. And he wrought that which was evil in the eyes of the Lord.
Right, so he got wifed up. He wifed up Ahab's daughter. He turned evil. Read verse 18.
Verse 18. And after all this, the Lord smote him in his bowels with an incurable disease.
So the Most High hit him in his bowels, man. Every time I hear about this, I think about Antiochus Epiphanes, where it said the Most High hit him in his bowels. He couldn't even stand his own steak. Right? He said he stunk. Right? So he hit him in his bowels. Go ahead, 19.
And it came to pass that in process of time, after the end of 2 years,
right,
his bowels fell out by reason of his sickness.
Think about that. It said his bowels fell out by reason of sickness. Where did they fall out from? Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. He was on that pot, and them bowels fell out. Go ahead.
So he died of sore diseases.
Read.
And his people made no burning for him.
Go ahead.
Like the burning of his fathers.
See that? Because he was a wicked king. So they made no burn. They didn't burn the odors. They didn't burn the spices for him. They buried him, right? But they didn't burn the spices. So when it said for Asa they made a great burning, they didn't burn his body. They burned incense. For Jeroboam, he was wicked, so they didn't make no burning for him. You see that? Read on.
32 years old was he when he began to reign.
Right.
And he reigned in Jerusalem 8 years.
Go ahead.
And departed without being desired.
Read.
Howbeit, they buried him in the city of David.
See, he got buried in the city of David. Check this out. Go ahead.
But not in the sepulchres of the kings.
See that? Because he was wicked. So he got buried in the city of David, but he didn't get buried in the sepulcher of kings.
Yeah, that's crazy.
David had their own sepulcher set up for the kings. And the wicked ones wasn't put in there. And they made no burning for them. Right? Very, very important. Very, very important. So, how do we, and we've been saying it, when you look at this burial process and just the fact that if a man was buried or not, it was almost like a punishment to not be buried. Go to Jeremiah 8 and 2. You got to think about Tobit, man. Remember we were in Assyrian captivity during Tobit. And what happened? The king of Assyria was just killing us and throwing bodies around. He didn't want us to be buried.
That's true.
He didn't want us to. What was Tobit doing? Man, Tobit was dropping his dinner. Like, there's a dead body in the streets. He was leaving off of feast days to go bury bodies. Because of the significance it had with just the respect for that person, the respect for the Most High, and the custom that we upheld. Right? Go ahead.
The book of Jeremiah, chapter 8 and verse 2.
Right?
And they shall spread them before the sun and the moon and all the host of heaven.
Right?
Whom they have loved and whom they have served.
Right?
And after whom they have walked.
Right?
And whom they have sought.
Right?
And whom they have worshipped.
Right?
They shall not be gathered.
See, the ones that worship the idols, it said they shall what?
They shall not be gathered.
No one's going to gather those bodies. Read.
Nor be buried.
Read.
They shall be for dung upon the face of the earth.
Right. It's like in Revelations where it said their dead bodies shall lie in the streets. And there will be nobody here to bury them. Their bodies laid in the streets of Sodom and Gomorrah. Right? Go to Jeremiah 16 and verse 4. Remember, the Most High said, he said, mourn for the dead. Remember when they came to Christ and they said, listen, died? What did Yahweh Shai do?
He mourned.
He said, Jesus wept. Right? Why? Because they were weeping. He said, weep with them that weep. Mourn with them that mourn. Laugh with them that laugh. You see that? So the Most High, he said, make great weeping for the dead. You see that? So this was part of the process. But if there's nobody to weep for, how you going to weep? But it all went hand in hand. I know you said, well, you can still weep and then they burn the body. No, part of it was having that body go on the ground, cover it over, and do it like that. Jeremiah 16 and verse 4.
Jeremiah chapter 16, verse 4.
Right?
They shall die of grievous death.
Go ahead.
They shall not be lamented,
Right?
neither shall they be buried.
Go ahead.
But they shall be as dung upon the face of the earth.
Go ahead.
And they shall be consumed by the sword and by famine. And their
Carcasses.
carcasses
Yeah.
shall be meat for the fowls of heaven and for the beasts of the earth.
See, that's for the extremely, extremely wicked. Like, we ain't gonna put rocks over you. No stones over you. You just gonna just get ate by wolves and birds plucking out your eyebrows for protein.
Damn.
And plucking at your skin. You ever see a body get picked by like vultures? It's wild. Gotta watch more Nature Channel. It's crazy. They don't play. They'll pick it to the bone. You said what?
Saw a couple vultures eating like roadkill.
Yeah, bro. They'll fight over that body, and then think about it. So you getting decomposed by worms. Then you got ants eating you. Then you got birds picking at you. Then you got wild little rodents coming. You got rats living in you, biting you up. Like, come on. Dang. And they're like, damn, nobody took time to bury him?
So in these last two scriptures, Jeremiah 18, Jeremiah 16:4, that's like Aaron and his sons? Like they told Aaron not to lament?
No, Aaron's sons got burned to a crisp.
Okay.
But he told Aaron not to mourn for them, yeah, because you wasn't gonna mourn for wickedness. Yeah. And it's the same thing, like, yeah, you're not gonna mourn for wickedness. For cats that's totally wicked, like, you gonna mourn for them? The cat got 1,000 bodies on him. Like, you know, I've been watching lately. I've been watching this drill scene, drill music,
Oh yeah.
and it's so wild. If you listen to it, if you watch, forget about the music part. Just who killed who? It's like 15 people from O Block killed 30 people from D Block, and it's crazy. And I'm sitting here like, can't feel bad for him. He said something about his mama, he went and killed him. Then they retaliated, and then you just got 15 deaths on each side. They live right around the corner from each other. It's crazy. And that's in Chicago. That's like King Von and all them cats. Then you got the cats from New York. They on some whole another thing, and they live literally project here, and these cats live right here. And they just beefing. And two of them, the two big ones, are blood cousins.
Damn.
Going in, he's like, oh, I can't wait to see Auntie. They on that type of time. Like, wait till I see Auntie, it's on. I'm like, what the hell? But how can you feel bad for them? How can you mourn for them?
What's it called?
Like when you listen to, it's like, they call it drill music. So you got drill music from Chicago, that's kind of where it started. Then it got over into New York.
Okay.
But all these like rappers, Lil Durk and all these cats that's getting killed, FGB Duck and all these guys that are getting killed, they come from that drill music scene where they literally talk about who they killed in their music. Yeah, I caught such and such slacking, put 4 in his head, blah, 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 you niggas is dead. Then the other cat, he'll rap, he'll say something about him, but then they'll actually do it. They actually killing each other. Like they literally, these cats are putting hits on each other and running up, catching cats in shoe stores, shooting them. It's crazy.
And making music about it.
And then making music about it. It's so wild. I'm like, no, these dudes is 18, 15. These dudes is dying at 13. Like, you hear a lot of these murders in Chicago, like it's behind the rap. It ain't just random killings. But my point is, Who's gonna mourn for that?
That's true.
I can't mourn for that. You just like anytime I hear a cat rapping about guns and drugs, and then he gets a bullet, like I ain't gonna feel like when I heard Pop Smoke got killed, I was like, okay, but all he talked about was I got my thing on me, I got my gun on me, but you didn't have it on you. You call that to you. How can you mourn for that?
Yeah.
How can you mourn for wickedness?
So that's possible.
It's like that. You literally said you lived that life, so he that liveth by the sword shall die by the sword. You see that? Life and death is in the power of the tongue. So I can't really, I can't mourn for that. I let their mama mourn. And they boys, they can mourn. Right? With me, I'm like, Most High is not mocked. A man will reap what he sows.
That's right.
You see that? 2 Kings 9. Let's deal with Jezebel. 2 Kings chapter 9, verse 10.
Okay.
Read that real quick.
This book is 2 Kings chapter 9 and verse 10.
Right?
And the dogs shall eat Jezebel.
Now, Jezebel was wicked, right? She was introducing idol worship, bringing in Baal. Go ahead, killing the prophets, right? Go ahead.
In the portion of Jezreel, and there shall be none to bury
See,
her.
this was the punishment or the prophecy towards her. Now, they ended up burying her. Go ahead.
And he opened the door and fled.
Right. So, just showing y'all that, man, the ones that didn't get that burial, that proper send-off, well, look at their characters. Now, check this out. There was, again, showing you the significance of burial. Go to 2 Esdras 2 and verse 20. 2 Esdras, you can actually go to 2 Esdras real quick. Go to 2 and hit verse, let's see here. 2 Esdras 2. Well, yeah, sure. 2 and verse. Read verse 10.
2 Esdras chapter 2 and verse 10.
Go ahead.
Thus saith the Lord unto Esdras,
Go ahead.
tell my people that I have given them the kingdom of Jerusalem,
Read.
which I would have given unto Israel.
Now jump down to verse 20.
Verse 20. Do right to the widow.
He's saying these are the things that you need to be doing. And he's giving these whole lists, right, of the different things that we were supposed to be doing. Go ahead.
Do right to the widow.
Read.
Judge for the fatherless. Give to the poor.
Right.
Defend the orphan.
Right.
Clothe the naked.
Go ahead.
Heal the broken and the weak.
Right.
Laugh not a lame man to scorn.
Go ahead.
Defend the maimed, and let the blind man come into the sight of my clearness.
Go ahead.
Keep the old and young within thy walls.
Verse 23. Check this out. Read.
Wheresoever thou findest the dead,
Go ahead.
take them and bury them.
Go ahead.
And I will give thee the first place in my resurrection.
Think about that. So we know who's getting raised up first. Good old Toby. Right?
Wow.
Think about that. That was the reward. He said, bury them and you'll be the first to be resurrected. That is 34 and verse 1. Ecclesiasticus in the Apocrypha 44 and verse 1.
Ecclesiasticus chapter 44 and verse 1.
Right?
Let us now praise famous men
Right?
and our fathers that begat us.
Right. And as you read down, it tells you about the famous men. And as you go through the other chapters, up until about 50, it's going into Moses. It's going into David. It's going into Joshua. It's going into Isaiah. It's going into Abraham. It's talking about those famous men. I want you to, just for time, we're going to jump. I want you to jump to verse 9.
Ecclesiastes chapter 44 and verse 9. And some there be which have no memorial,
Right?
who are perished, as though they have never been,
Go ahead.
and are become as though they had never been born, and their children after them.
Right?
But these were merciful men, whose righteousness for their
Go
sakes.
ahead.
Their seed shall remain forever, and their glory shall not be blotted out.
14.
Their bodies are buried in peace.
You know what?
Their bodies are buried in peace.
That their bodies. He's talking about the righteous men. Moses, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Joshua. Right? He said their bodies were buried in peace. David, Solomon. It goes into when it says, "Let us now praise famous men." And all you go over the next chapter. It goes into Moses. In the next chapter, it goes into who's that? Joshua? Yeah, Joshua, son of Nun. After that, it goes into Nathan. After that, it goes into Elijah. After this, it goes into Hosea. You see that? It goes into all these famous men. Solomon is in there. David is in there. Right? It goes into all these. Ezekiel was in there. These men that said they were all buried. What's up?
Your house shine now?
No.
The little.
No, that's not talking about Jesus. Not Jesus that you're thinking
I
about.
think I asked you that before.
Yeah, that's talking about Joshua. No, not Joshua. It says not Joshua. It's in my annotated. It's so was it? No. Yeah, it's not Yahweh Shai though. If you look in the annotated, it gives you, remember, because the names are Greek. If you look in the annotated, it gives you the actual name.
God.
What does it say?
In the annotated part, it says, "This Jesus was the son of Sarah."
Well, no, that's talking about, that's Jesus, the son of Sarah, because that name was a common name. But there's I know what he's talking about, but it's not. Are you talking about that?
Yes.
Where it says
Yes.
this is the son of Sarah?
No, not that. When they keep giving the descriptions of the men, you talking about
Right.
going into the next chapter when you go into.
Yeah, it's not. No, it's not Yahweh Shai. Jesus, son of value. This is talking about Joshua, right? And was the successor of Moses in prophecies. That's talking about Joshua, right? I can make sure though. Let's see. In the time of Moses also he did the work of mercy. He and Caleb, yeah, that's talking about Joshua. When you read verse 7, in the time of Moses also he did a work of mercy. He and Caleb. Joshua and Caleb were the ones that were with Moses. So that's talking about Joshua. You get that? But we see this burial part, right? Right. So let's talk some things about the burial thing. Let's jump into this real quick. We got like 5 minutes. So, sometimes, think about this. I got another one for you. Remember Ananias and his wife, the ones that held that part of what they promised? Guess what? When Ananias died, they took him and they did what? They buried him. Then when his wife died, they took her and buried him immediately. See, they were just buried immediately. In some instances, when people died, they would wash the body. Go to Acts 9:37. This was, what sister was this? Acts 9, this was a sister. She was a disciple. Acts 9, it was Dorcas. Right. Tabitha. Right, it says she had many alms deeds. Read 37.
The book of Acts, chapter 9, verse 37. And it came to pass in those days that she was sick and died.
Right.
Whom when they had washed, they laid her in the upper chamber.
See that? So they would wash the bodies. The Jews keep that custom today. When they'll die, they'll wash the bodies, they'll wrap them in the linen, they'll put a napkin over their faces. Because they're trying to read off of what Lazarus, when it said Lazarus came out the sepulcher, said he was bound with the grave clothes, and a napkin was about his face. You see that? From there, go to John 19. Because again, just like what they did in the Old Testament, they did in the New Testament. We preserve the body with spices. Remember, Martha was going to the grave after Yahushua was already put in the sepulcher to anoint his body with spices. Then when they went, they were like, damn, he's gone. The young man was like, don't cry. You come to see Christ. Right? It's me, baby. Baby, I'm renewed, I'm refreshed. Baby, right? But they came to anoint his body after the fact. Think about that. First of all, the smell, that's one. But then, the intimacy of anointing somebody that's already gone. So he took care for the dead. You see that? It was a process. Read John 19 and verse 38.
The book of John, chapter 19, verse 38.
Right?
And after
Right on time. Go ahead.
and after this, Joseph of Arimathea,
Right?
being a disciple of Jesus,
Right?
but secretly for the fear of the Jews,
Read.
besought Pilate that he might take away the body of Jesus, and Pilate gave him leave. He came therefore and took the body of Jesus.
Right?
And there came also Nicodemus, which at the first came to Jesus by night, and brought a mixture of myrrh and aloes,
Right?
about 100-pound weight.
Listen, 100 pounds of myrrh and aloe to dunk his body, his dead body in, to anoint him.
Soak him.
Yeah, it was going to soak his body in myrrhs and aloes, but that was a way of preserving the body. You see that? And then what happened? Well, we will wind the body up in linen. Go to St. John chapter 11 and 44. So what I'm showing you is the process of burial. Why is this significant? Because this is what we did. We didn't dump the body in oil, wound it in linen just to burn it up. We did all this for the burial. Put it in a sepulcher, put it in the ground. Listen, cats was getting buried under oak trees. People was getting buried in their houses. People was getting buried in caves, on hilltops. That's what we did. Read.
The book of John, chapter 11, verse 44.
Right? So this is when Yahushua went to the graveside of Lazarus. Go ahead.
And he that was dead came forth, bound hand and foot.
Right, because they was like trying to check, like, how can you let this man die? He, you heal the people, you can bring him back. And it said that Yahushua, it said he groaned in the spirit. Like, I can only imagine what he was doing. Like, but he felt bad. He said he wept. He felt bad for what happened. He went to the gravesite. He said, he that was dead came forth, bound hand and foot with grave clothes. Go ahead.
And his face was bound about with a napkin.
Right?
Jesus said unto them, loose him and let him go.
Right, because they would cover the face, but they would bound the body in linens. Right? Go back to John 19 and 40. Check this out. I saved this scripture for last. So if you want to know what we did, this right here is it. Read John 19 and verse 40.
The book of John, chapter 19, verse 40.
Right?
Then they took the body of Jesus
Right.
and wound it in linen clothes with the spices, as the manner of the Jews is to bury.
Is the manner of the Jews is to what?
To bury.
There it is. The manner of the Jews is to bury. You never ever see in the New Testament any instance of cremation. First of all, Christians didn't start believing in cremation until maybe 50, 60, 70 years ago. Christians was against cremation. That wasn't even a Christian. I'm just dealing with Christians. Early Christians, they was not about that at all. I'm talking about the pagan Christians. But what were they following? They were following, obviously, the traditions of the Jews. Habitually, it's common. Right? Mode. Particular way. Distinct mode. Manner to instruct. Right. So, any questions on that? Right on time. Now,
How did they do the 40-day memorial?
because that's what the Egyptians did. Remember, they got Jacob back to Canaan, they did 7. So it was really 47 days. So, when they say, "I went Rome, do as a," you know, that's where they were. They wanted to show that level of respect for Joseph, because that's what it was about. Because Joseph,
Off of West Park and 6, right? A mother. Now, it was a 9-year-old boy that was killed in 2020, and they left the body decomposing in an apartment building with the other 3 siblings.
we know what our people are dealing with. So that's like the ultimate level of neglect. You know. Right, we'll follow his example.
With him by baptism to
We
death.
are what?
Buried with him by baptism unto
You said
death.
the Bible is talking to you. It says we are buried with him unto baptism. We are buried with Christ because he was buried. It's a significant thing. Go ahead.
That like as Christ was raised up from the dead
See that? Like as Yahushua was raised up out that grave, out that sepulcher. Go ahead.
by the glory of the Father.
Right?
Even so we also should walk in newness of life.
Right. There's a symbolism in the grave and coming back from the grave. You see that? Remember when he always talks about there's no power in the grave. There's no power in the grave. We know it's symbolizing death. But he could have used another word. But it's grave symbolizing burying, covering up that old thing. But when that old thing comes about, that covering is a new thing. That's the beauty of it all. Any other questions? Yeah, if you miss the beginning, catch the beginning. It'll give you the full perspective, hopefully. A lot of reading I did for that one. All right, if that's it, we thank everybody for joining us online. We appreciate you. Today is Wednesday. They will be live on Friday in VA, and we will see you guys back here on Saturday. If that's it, let's say shalom.
Shalom.
Chilling